I never thought the lies of an unholy emperor could reshape a kingdom's fate. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick with tension. Shadows danced across the stone walls of the castle as whispers echoed through the hall. I clutched my mother's necklace. The one she said was steeped in magic and stories of old. I could feel my heart race. Something was coming. Something terrible. My breath came in short gasps as I leaned closer, trying to catch snippets of the conversation. They say he has the power to change destinies. A voice trembled, rising in pitch. What will we do if he turns against us? Another voice broke into wild laughter, a sound that made the hairs stand up on the back of my neck. No one seemed to notice me standing there, hidden behind the heavy brocade curtains. I watched, my hands trembling. Each word felt like a dagger in my chest. The emperor, an unholy ruler, had taken our kingdom. I had heard the tales, the chilling stories passed down from the elders about his twisted magic and wicked desires. A dark figure cloaked in secrets, he sat now on the throne, bathed in shadows and deceit. They said his eyes could pierce through souls, that his smile could mask 1,000 lies. The kind of man who could strike fear into your heart with just a glance. And yet, here I was, tangled up in this web of fear and uncertainty. My friends, my family, everyone I loved was caught up in this. Outside, I could hear the cheers from the townsfolk celebrating his rule, unaware of the treachery beneath. But I knew better. I could taste the bitterness on my tongue. Things were changing. As I slipped back out into the corridor, the cold stone beneath my feet felt like ice. I could hear my father's voice, steady, strong, echoing in my mind. Trust the truth, daughter. But what truth remained? My heart sank deeper. How could I trust when the world spun around me like a storm? Then, a sudden crash shattered the silence. Wails erupted, piercing through the joyous laughter outside. Instinct kicked in. I dashed towards the sound, the heavy drapes tangling around my legs. My pulse pounded in my ears. I pushed open the large doors leading to the council chamber. And there he stood, the emperor, cloaked in darkness, his presence absorbing every ounce of light. Panic washed over me. I could see the despair in the faces of those gathered. What was happening? I felt the collective dread weaving through the room, tightening like a noose. The emperor's hand rose, silencing the murmurs. His grin spread wider, sinister curls lingering on his lips. Who dares defy me? He boomed, the walls trembling with his voice. My body froze. This was it. This was the moment everything changed. Would we fight back? Or would we succumb to his reign of terror? All I could think was how I needed to save my family, my home, from his clutches. I took a shaky step forward, heart racing, burning in my chest. Then the impossible happened. A glimmer of light burst forth, illuminating the room. A stranger appeared, cloaked in white light, hopeful yet fierce. My eyes widened. Who was this? A savior? Or the emperor's next victim? As the stranger faced the emperor, my mind raced, contemplating the consequences of this intruder. Uncertainty swirling around us like a blizzard. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The silence that followed the arrival of the cloaked figure was suffocating. All eyes were on the stranger, the air crackling with tension. Who was this intruder? I felt hope swell momentarily, battling against the grim reality of the emperor's looming presence. The stranger, shrouded in a veil of luminescence, stood unwavering before the malevolent ruler, as if they had come with a purpose yet undisclosed. Your tyranny ends today, the stranger declared, their voice sharp and clear, echoing against the stone walls, slicing through the dread that surrounded us. The courage in their stance was intoxicating, but I couldn't help but feel a flicker of fear. Was this bravery misplaced? The Emperor's laughter rumbled through the chamber like thunder. You think you can challenge me? You know nothing of my power. His grin widened, shadows dancing dangerously across his face. But go on, amuse me. Watch as your light is extinguished. A ripple of uncertainty passed through the room. I glanced at the faces around me, fear etched deep into their features, desperation clinging to them. There were whispers among the councilmen, some curling back, their courage waning. Still the stranger stood firm, undeterred. What was it that fueled their strength? From the depths of my heart, a tiny flicker of hope took root. While my instincts screamed to flee and drag my family away from this nightmare, I felt a pull. This was larger than myself. I was no longer just a scared girl clutching a necklace of ancient stories. I was part of something greater, a chance for my people, for my home to stand against the demon that threatened to consume us. Who are you? The Emperor rumbled, turning his attention to the interloper, his eyes narrowing, sinister confidence gleaming in their depths. I am someone who believes in the truth, in hope. I am here to reclaim what you have stolen from these people. The stranger replied, their resolve shining like a beacon. You may cloak yourself in lies and darkness, but light always finds a way to shine through. The Emperor's expression shifted, the mirth draining momentarily, replaced by a twisted anger. Your delusions will be your downfall. Guards! He bellowed, his voice suffused with fury, and in an instant, shadows seemed to erupt from the walls, morphing into figures that towered over the crowd. Eyes filled with malevolence, panic surged like wildfire. Bodies pressed together as frightened nobles scrambled towards the exits. But my feet were frozen to the ground, caught between fear and an unexplainable longing to stand my ground. The power in the air was palpable, charged with a conflict that felt larger than any one person. As chaos ensued, I spotted an elderly woman, her face lined with years of toil and sorrow, clutching the arm of a child, her eyes wide with fear. In that terrifying moment, the connection to my own family surged through me. I could not abandon them to this fate, not when there was a shred of hope to grasp. Rushing forward, I grabbed the child's free hand, tugging them towards the altar, where the stranger stood defiantly. We need to help, I shouted, breathless, my voice barely registering over the clamor. But as I reached the stranger's side, something flickered in their eyes, knowledge, perhaps, or a recognition that made me question my role in this unfolding story. You understand the stakes, don't you? Their whisper was urgent as they took in the nobles' faces, now transformed into desperate entities battling their own dread. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I cannot stand by and watch as our lives are snuffed out, I replied, my voice trembling, a mixture of fear and determination. In an instant, the atmosphere around us shifted. The guardian cloaked in light turned to me, and for a fleeting moment, I felt an echo of warmth, a bond that transcended fear. Then fight with me, for it is in the unity of our hearts that we will find strength. Suddenly, the shadows lunged, and the Emperor's eyes blazed with madness. Seize them, he commanded, venom lacing his words with that. The chamber erupted into chaos. I felt the strength of the stranger at my side, the flickering light almost pushing back the darkness. Yet, in the whirlwind of movement, I caught a glimpse of something odd, an inscription deep in the stone beneath our feet that pulsed rhythmically, almost as if breathing. Beneath the clamor, it beckoned to me, and I recognized it instantly. The tales of old me mother's stories of the hidden bond between light and dark, of redemption through courage. And then, just when I thought the shadows were closing in, the ground trembled. A fissure split the stone, the pulsing light below radiating upwards, encapsulating us in a cocoon of shimmering potential. I could feel the energy surging, drawing from the very essence of the castle's history, the hopes and dreams of those who had come before USA tapestry woven into the foundation of our world. But then, as if the darkness sensed the shift, I felt Ida tug at my heart, a cruel reminder of what was at stake. The Emperor's dark forces surged forward, twisting and writhing, a force determined to crush all remnants of light. In that moment, an unexpected weight settled in my chest. No, we can't let him win, I cried out, the urgency lacing my call. But as I reached for the tremor of light, A chilling realization gripped me. The inscriptions, the rising light, they were not just assisted by our courage. They required a sacrifice. A new fear coursed through me, shattering the fragile wall of hope. Who would pay the price? Would I need to bare my heart against the shadows? Or would someone standing beside me need to step into the void? In that swirling haze of fear and defiance, the ground echoed with an ominous rumble, and just as the shadows lunged at us, I felt the weight of an unbearable choice looming ahead. The light flickered, threatened by the encroaching darkness. And as I drew a breath, edging toward the answer I dreaded, the ground opened wider, revealing what lay beneath a swirling abyss that beckoned us into its depths. Choose, the stranger yelled above the chaos. Choose wisely, for the cost of truth will either save us or lead to our end. The glimmering pathway beckoned. I glanced at the Emperor, his eyes gleaming maliciously. The urgency thickened, my heart racing, and as the shadows lunged closer, I realized I stood on the edge of an irrevocable decision. And then it struck me. The truth of the kingdom, the power of love, the sacrifice of light for darkness, and suddenly, everything I thought I knew began to unravel, with one irrevocable question rising from the depths of my soul. What would I be willing to sacrifice to save everything I loved? The light flickered like a candle in a storm. Each breath I took laden with the weight of every choice leading me to this moment. The rift beneath my feet swirled, revealing the depths of despair that had been hidden for so long. The shadows of lost dreams and forsaken hope clawed at the edges, hungry for new souls to devour. Choose. The stranger's voice was strong, yet tinged with a desperation that mirrored my own. I looked into their eyes and saw a vast sea of understanding and fear, as if they too wrestled with the burden of what it meant to stand against tyranny. There was a knowledge in them that somehow connected with the stories my mother had recounted, the tales of strength that grew in unity and the weight of sacrifices made for freedom. That I, in the midst of the chaos, a hush fell, the shadows frozen momentarily in the dance of light and darkness. I could hear the frightened breaths of the people behind me, a symphony of vulnerability sharpened by the palpable tension of anticipation. The old woman I had saved grasped my arm tightly, her touch grounding me as my mind scrambled for clarity amid the whirlwind of noise. Your hope, your courage, they can be weapons against him, the stranger said, their own hand extended toward the light. But every light requires a spark, and that spark. They hesitated, casting a glance toward the dark forces still lurking under the Emperor's command. Comes at a price. I felt a tremor in my chest, the gravity of their words weighing down on me. What price was I prepared to pay? I could envision the faces of my loved ones, their laughter, their strength, the way they had supported me through thick and thin. They depended on me, yet I felt the chasm opening wider, whispering secrets of sacrifice, whispered promises that perhaps it could all end today. But at what cost? A figure caught my eye, one of the councilmen, a stout man whose name I had heard in passing, clutching his daughter, her eyes wide, wild with fear. She was just a child. Would I be willing to sacrifice a life so innocent if it could save many? The very thought squeezed my heart tightly. And then, under the horror of that thought, I found an unexpected flicker of warmth. What if the cost didn't have to be a life? What if unity could defeat the darkness without the blood of the innocent staining our hands? Suddenly, a realization washed over. Meth stories were not just fables, but blueprints of hope, woven with the belief that we are stronger together. The shadows writhed restlessly, sensing that the fabric of inability was beginning to fray. The Emperor's smirk returned, and an ominous laugh escaped his lips, twisted and cruel. You think you can reshape the narrative? That you can undo the chains I have laid? You are a child, he said, his voice laced with mockery, seeming to revel in the chaos around him. Watch them fall, watch yourself fail. Fury ignited within me, powerful and unyielding. Your tyranny ends today, but not through sacrifice. I shouted, my voice rising above the din, unwavering. We will not pay your price. We stand together, and we will push back the darkness with the light we carry within us. As if answering that call, the inscriptions beneath our feet pulsed in response, and I felt the energy beneath surge, an echo of my defiance melding into a rhythm, a heartbeat resonating with the very essence of hope. I turned back to the people, the council, the ancient bond of our shared histories igniting within us as we formed a circle, our hands meeting in solidarity. The elder woman beside me and her child took my hands, joining the union I was forging. Spurred by a newfound strength, I beckoned the others to join us, pulling them into the flicker of light that began to glow brighter, defying the encroaching dusk. The pulsing rhythm grew more insistent, feeding off our collective courage, and suddenly, a burst of luminescence radiated from the inscriptions, branching outward like roots of a great tree breaking the surface. I could feel warmth enveloping us, an ethereal hug of unbroken trust and shared defiance momentarily illuminating the chamber. Yet as the shadows recoiled, I felt the sinister grip of the Emperor focus sharply back on me, his eyes narrowing dangerously. You think you can resist me with your pitiful rally? Darkness begets darkness, child. His voice dripped with venom, casting a pall over our fragile light, and then, with a flick of his wrist, he summoned forth a wave of darkness, a twisting mass of nothingness that surged, threatening to swallow our blossoming light. The warmth that encased us flickered momentarily, on the edge of extinguishing, but within that tremor surged the hope of solidarity, a wave built on love and anger alike that I in that heartbeat. As the fight surged within me, I felt the ground shudder beneath us, the ancient magic rising to meet us. What if, just this once, we could turn the tide? I lifted my chin, meeting the Emperor's gaze. You may think darkness breeds despair, but we cast shadows too. Fear will not bind us. And as we forged our connection, the glow began to transform, wrapping around me like the embrace of lost lovers, thriving against the looming shadows. This was not just the battle for my people. It was the culmination of generations who had fought and lost, but never forgotten. Then, the trembling fissure beneath us erupted, the cacophony rising to a fever pitch as the darkness bore down upon us, the moment stretching into a single heartbeat. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from a newfound sense of purpose. I refused to back down. But just as the darkness seemed poised to extinguish all that we had built, just as the shadows lunged further into our circle, a voice not my own broke free from the depths of the light. The truth shall be revealed, and the sacrifice shall not be in vain. Let love and light collide. And with those words, everything changed. The chamber erupted into an explosion of light, and as I was thrust backward, into the unknown, the realization struck me with a force that shattered everything I thought I knew. What did I just unleash? In the dizzying chaos, as I felt myself slipping away into the light, I knew the destiny of a kingdom was not just in the hands of the brave. It lay within all of us, but at a cost no one could foresee. And as my consciousness waned, one word echoed through my mind, promise of what was to come. Together. But who would be lost in the clash of light and dark? And could it be that I was not the only one who would pay the price? The brilliance of the light surged around me, filling every crevice of the chamber. And yet, as I was thrust backward, the shadows gave a violent roar that enveloped the remnants of our flame. My heart pounded in a rhythm defined by terror and exhilaration. The intensity of the moment clawed at my insides as if trying to tear away every ounce of hope I had fought to reclaim. I floated in an abyss of brilliance before the light dimmed, transforming into hues of silver and soft gold. Shadows lingered at the periphery, slithering away, but I felt the tether of connection to the circle fraying. I realized that I was not merely a spectator in this clash. I was an unwilling participant, a part of the prophecy I had not fully understood. With a jolt, I landed heavily on the cool, stone floor, blinking against the shock of the fall. As I straightened, disoriented, the chamber seemed transformed. Walls glimmered, as though they had been painted with the essence of our newfound hope. My heart sank at the sight of the lifeless forms strewn across the ground, expressions frozen in the moment of disbelief. Is anyone alive? I croaked, my voice breaking the morbid stillness, fear puncturing my thoughts. My gaze drifted around the remnants of our unified stand, searching desperately for friendly faces. The councilman's figure lay sprawled beside the old woman, their bodies entwined as though they had shielded each other in their last moments. I felt an unbearable ache separate my heart from my body, the weight of their sacrifice settling deep within my bones. But then a flicker of movement caught my eye. It was her, the child, the one I had looked to for courage, now kneeling close by, her small hands pressed together in muted prayer. The light wrapped around her like a halo, illuminating not just her fragile form but the defiance nestled in her heart. "You promised us," she whispered, and her trembling voice carved a channel of despair that cut through my grief. "Together," I whispered back, though I did not know how I could fulfill that promise when darkness lingered around us like a prism of grief. Shadows were not just a metaphor for despair, they were alive, creeping at the edges, waiting for our spirits to wane. In the distance, echoes of laughter mingled with the fading light, teasing me with memories of joyous gatherings in the village square, weaving through stitched tales of resilience. "What could have been is still possible," I murmured. But could I hold onto that belief under the crushing weight of loss? I reached out to the girl, pulling her into my arms, feeling her shudder against me. A fragile remnant of innocence in a world draped in darkness. "You are not alone," I whispered, cupping her face with my hand. "We will find a way back to the light, I promise." Just then, something flickered at the edge of my Visiona, figure emerging from the lingering shadows, cloaked in darkness yet reaching toward me, hands outstretched. "You think you can save what has already been claimed?" The Emperor's voice sliced through the air, cool and taunting, a venomous hiss that echoed in the cavernous space. "Your darkness is nothing without the bonds you seek to sever," I shouted back, igniting a surge of fire within. But doubt prickled at the edges of my resolve. Could I truly face him? I felt small, dwarfed by his unyielding presence. Yet even amid that fear, I could not allow it to win. "Let love and light collide," echoed through my mind again, a mantra, a plea. As if in response to my fervent wish, I felt the warmth of the child ignite the air around us. Her presence reminded me of the tether we shared, a flickering flame surrounded by swirling shadows, the essence of our fight. The darkness confronted me, looming just beyond the child's fading prayers and my wavering heart. I had to take a stand. "You think you own us, but our hearts are greater than your malice. We define ourselves by our choices, not by the cruelty of those who seek to destroy us." A sudden tempest of wind rushed around the chamber, and with it memories flooded in, faces of those I had lost, those still fighting, and among them the laughter of my people. The chorus of our shared strength pressed against me as if urging me to push forward, to reclaim what was rightfully ours. What was sacrificed would not be in vain. As the gleam of light danced within the stone walls, I drew a deep breath, channeling every ounce of hope into that singular moment. "Together, we are the light," I shouted defiantly, and the room resonated with my declaration. A surge of energy ripped through me, siphoning from the profound connection I felt not just to the child but to everyone who dared to dream, to fight, to pray. Light erupted with an intensity that shattered the confines of despair, dancing like wild flames as it sought the shadows, waging war against the darkness that had come to claim us. But just as the brilliance surged, a violent shudder rippled through the chamber, and the momentary clarity fractured as the shadows converged once more. "No!" I screamed, my voice swallowed by the cacophony of despair. I surged against the darkness, holding tightly to the child's hand. But the Emperor's laughter intertwined with the agony of confusion swirling around you. "You cannot control what you do not understand," he spat, eyes glinting dangerously as if I had dared to challenge the very fabric of fate itself. As the quaking intensified, a voice pierced through the din, sharp and clear, a voice I had feared eradicating long ago. "Do not resist the truth, my child. Sometimes those closest to us must bear the burden we cannot. Trust in what you cannot see." My blood turned to ice, and fear gripped me anew. Who spoke? Was it chance, or was it fate? With the light growing distant, I had one desperate thought. Was the path ahead truly illuminated, or would more than just hope slip away? I felt the ground beneath me shift once more, and before I could fully react, the shadows retracted, throwing us into chaos. Just as the child clutched my hand tighter, a flash of blinding light bore down upon us, and everything went dark. What had I just awakened? In that moment of utter despair, I realized who else would be lost, and whom would I have to become to save what remained. The lies of the Emperor loomed large as I clung to the flickering promise of togetherness, teetering on the edge of absolution in a world wrought by treachery. The cliff I stood at now seemed insurmountable, and all I had left was one haunting thought. What if together was a different kind of cost, one neither of us could foresee? The stillness pressed in on me as the darkness wrapped around my consciousness, pulling me into an abyss that felt both infinite and suffocating. Lifting myself from the void took effort I didn't know I possessed. Flashes of light and shadow collided behind my eyelids as I fought to awaken. What once was a cacophony of chaos faded slowly into an eerie silence, pierced by a soft whimpering sound. "Hello," I croaked, my voice breaking through the thick silence like a faint whisper. The air felt heavy, laden with the residue of despair and unspoken anguish. I squinted against the dimness, straining to focus on the small frame before me. The child, her face a mask of worry and fear, hovered just within reach, clutching at her tattered dress. "Where are we?" Her eyes, wide and searching, seemed to catch the last remnants of the flickering light as though they held on to me like a lifeline. My heart sank. I couldn't even grasp where we stood anymore. The familiar contours of the chamber I had just fought in feeling like a distant memory. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice trembling as the tremors of uncertainty rocked me. "But I promise I won't leave you." Yet, even as I spoke, I could feel the weight of the Emperor's words thrumming painfully in the back of my mind. What if I failed? How could I protect her, protect us, when my very existence seemed to unravel with each moment that passed? "We were together," she whispered, clutching her hands together, trembling beneath an unseen chill. "You promised." "Yes, I did." "Together," I replied, searching for strength within those small, fragile fingers interlaced with mine. The warmth of her tiny hand grounded me. "But we have to find a way out. Center ourselves. You have to trust me just like I trust you." I didn't know what I was asking of her, but the fragile flicker of hope in her eyes melted the ice that threatened to encase my heart as we moved cautiously. Shadows wavered along the walls like living beings, flickering between moments of clarity and chaos. Yet, as I took a step forward, the luminescent hues of the previously vibrant chamber began to pulse, responding to our presence. "The light is still here," the girl exclaimed, a hint of awe in her voice. "When we move together," I encouraged, feeling a newfound sense of purpose surge through us, daring to challenge the darkness. "We can cultivate it." With every synchronized step, the light swelled around us, illuminating the forgotten crevices, revealing weathered stones lined with a history untold. Each heartbeat echoed the promise of kinship, of an alliance fortified by faith, as if the very essence of our combined desperation catalyzed the refracted light. Just as it appeared we might find a path, the oppressive shadows coalesced, solidifying into shapes that cloaked the walls, claws reaching for us like the grasp of malevolent spirits. "No, stay close," I urged, feeling the urgency of our plight deepen as the darkness threatened to swallow us whole. But the child stumbled, gasping as she lost her footing. "Help! I can't," she cried out, tumbling backward, her form encased by encroaching shadows that seemed to awaken with delight at her falter. I launched forward, reaching desperately to pull her back, the sensation of dread wrapping tighter around me with each passing moment. "I am here. Am right here," I echoed, grasping her wrist just as the shadows edged in, long fingers curling around her small frame. In that moment, I understood more than words could express. The sacrifice the Emperor's darkness demanded, what cost did it exact? Without thinking, I pulled with all my might, and with a roar that erupted from my chest, I called upon the light weaving through us. "Together we can break this fog. You will not take her from me." In a blinding flash, a surge of energy erupted, coursing through the connection we shared, breaking through the miasma of sorrow. We clung to one another as light burst forth, dispelling the shadows that sought to devour her, pushing against the very core of darkness that sought to fracture our bond. As the light forced back the tendrils of night, I caught a glimpse of another figure in its glow, tall and foreboding, draped in darkness, but with an unmistakable presence. It was the Emperor, despair spilling from him like shadows untamed. "You cannot save her. You cannot save yourself." A chill trailed along my spine at his cunning eyes piercing through the veil of darkness. "Your treachery is your own undoing. They'll show you how truly powerless you are." Suddenly, The ground trembled beneath us, throwing us into chaos once more. Screams echoed in the distance, a storm of anguished cries that broke through the serenity of the surrounding light. "No, not them. We can't let him," I shouted, overwhelmed by the urgency, the depths of despair threatening to consume me anew as I turned my gaze back to him. An idea sparked, the fleeting whisper of a plan igniting in my mind. "Your shadows don't own us. We wield light together," I declared, ready to reclaim not just our futures but every life that flickered on the edge of Ustos we had lost and those we yet had to save. But as clarity washed over me, an unforeseen realization struck with brutal a chilling truth that coiled around my heart. In our struggle for the light, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone remained hidden, far worse than the Emperor himself. "Your greatest fear isn't me," the Emperor laughed darkly, "but the truth that lies just beyond your knowing." The child looked up at me, terrified confusion pooling in her eyes. "What truth?" Before I could answer, shadows erupted with an unholy fervor, summoning forth visions to disarm my determination. From their depths, familiar faces appeared, those of loved ones I thought forever lost amid the turmoil of battle lining our past, twisting in grief. A soft hand grasped my shoulder. To bring them back, I turned, meeting the piercing gaze of an apparition both haunting and heartbreaking. "You must unlock the darkest corners of your own heart." Betrayal, loss, courage. The tension drew tighter, pulling me into the depths of my own soul. The Emperor laughed, prolonging the torment as he spun the truth around me like a gossamer thread. "We could have done this together," he taunted, "but alas, you will choose despair just like all others before." And so I stood, caught in the web of light and shadow as the blur of reality began to die away, an inexplicable certainty hardening in my heart. Each flickering visage in the darkness whispered warnings, truths I had long buried. Was the price for our resurrection the silence of others, an unbearable cost for the love I dared to save? The weight returned, heavier than any darkness that had ever enveloped me. A revelation spreading like wildfire through my mind. What if the sacrifice was my own? Just as that thought settled, a shattering scream erupted in the air, one that pierced straight through my core and echoed beyond the edges of comprehension. "You've won nothing." But I was no longer just a wayward soul seeking assurance. I was the flame that would defy the shadows, whether they consumed my heart or not. The truth remained hidden, breathing down my neck like a furtive specter, yet it was far too late to turn back now. "Someone must bear the truth," I uttered, resolute, as the shadows swirled all around us, heart pounding in time with the cries for help I now faced. Together or not, the lies of an unholy emperor would not dictate the fate of a kingdom built upon the fragile strength of love. Yet was I prepared to embrace the truth, whatever it may be. As the shadows coiled tighter around us, the beauty of our moment felt frail and fleeting. I held the child's trembling hand, feeling its warmth but also the fear leaching into my very bones. "I won't let them take you," I whispered fiercely, though uncertainty gnawed at the edges of my resolve. The apparition of my lost loved ones flickered before me, taunting my spirit with echoes of laughter and voices now faded. Each face bore the scars of betrayal and sorrow, hinting at a truth I was loath to confront. They were my past, my strength, but now they threatened to engulf me in self-doubt. "Remember us?" one figure whispered, their eyes wide with a reminder that pierced through the veil of shadows. "Remember why you fight." I teetered on the precipice of decision. With every moment the Emperor watched, his presence a dark cloak hanging over my soul. It felt as though the battle wasn't merely for the light, but for the very essence of who I was. The child looked up at me, her trust shining through the veil of darkness, filling the chasm of doubt with radiance. "Please, don't let them win," she pleaded, the quiver in her voice cutting through the despair clinging to my heart. And in her eyes, I found a flicker of clarity. Nothing I had lost, no wretched truth, could sever the bond we had forged through our desperate fight for survival. "Together," I declared, my voice steadier now, mingling with the harsh whispers swirling around us. We melded our spirits into the light that began to shimmer anew, casting aside the oppressive shadows. "We will push through this darkness." As we conjured the strength of our intertwined destinies, I felt the air shift, vibrating with energy born from hope and grief. The blade of light cut through the shadows, revealing the cavern walls adorned with ancient carvings that spoke of battles long fought, of lovers torn apart, of kings and queens brought low by their own hubris. Suddenly, behind me, the shadows writhed violently, a sinister form emerging. Their laughter echoed in my ears as the Emperor raised his arms, summoning greater chaos. "You dare oppose me? You will know suffering beyond measure," he roared, shadows spiraling around him like storm clouds ready to unleash fury. But within the maelstrom, I glimpsed something fragile, a sprawling thread of light leading deeper into the heart of the darkness. I realized then that this wasn't merely a skirmish against despair but an unveiling of truths that lay within me and the child at my side. "Follow the light," I urged her, feeling the flicker of her hope radiate in tandem with my determination. We stepped forward, hearts bound in unbreakable resolve. Yet, as we approached the glow, a new anguish clawed at me, like claws of ice burrowing into my chest. "Promise you'll stay." The last time I lost someone dear, their absence felt like the slow strangling of memory. My heart ached with the possibility of reunion turning into a guise of betrayal. "Always," she breathed, her faith in me rekindling the spirit I thought lost. And as we ventured deeper into the light, I felt the echoes of my past urging me onward, merging with the child's light, a hope rekindled. Then, a deafening crack filled the air as the shadows convulsed, and a small figure emerged, another child, tethered to the void by chains of despair. His face was wrought with pain, but something in his gaze sparked recognition within me. "Help me!" he cried, a haunting echo of the same vulnerability I had just felt moments ago. The darkness swirled around him, and for a split second, the world around me fell silent, as if the very air held its breath. "I can't abandon him," I realized, the weight of the decision heavy in my gut, knowing full well that saving him might come at a price. "Don't stray from me," the little girl warned, her grip tightening around my arm. Yet, in this moment, another part of me pondered the cost of compassion. Could we risk dividing our collective light in hopes of saving another, when the cost of failure might be our very souls? "I can't leave him," I said resolutely, locking eyes with her, down to the deepest belonging we shared. "Together we can break these chains." As I stepped toward the boy, the light surged, pushing back against the shadows that sought to claim him even as they lashed violently around us. "Hold on," I shouted back to the girl, the tension unraveling. In the fray, I felt a tearing at the seams of our makeshift bond. Did I end that heartbeat? The realization surged through me, would saving this boy mean the loss of the light I had fought to create with her? I cast a desperate glance behind, catching a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes as the shadows pressed in, attempting to separate us. "Stay with me," she urged, but I'd already set my course. The choice, however bleak, was one I would not forsake. With a frantic lurch, I grasped the chains binding the boy, only to feel a shockwave of darkness engulf us, an echo of despair that rolled over us like a tidal wave. "You cannot save them, nor can you save yourself," the Emperor's voice rang, rattling my very core. But just as my resolve wavered, I noticed a faint glimmer in the distance, the all-consuming allure of a deeper truth shining through the shadows, calling to me. Was this the sacrifice I needed to make, or was it merely tethered to my failures? "No, I will not let you snatch my light," I cried, pushing back against the chains binding me, the light igniting fiercely in a bid to consume the darkness once and for all. With every ounce of will, I grasped the boy's hand while forcing the fading gleam of hope from the girl to breathe life back into our collective fight. "Together," I shouted, urging them both forward, and as the chains shattered with a brilliant flash, an audible gasp escaped those tethered to the Shadowsa notion of memories swirling like dust motes in bright sun. But just then, trapped in the brilliance of our determination, I felt the shadows flicker, a familiar sensation wrapping around my heart. A cold whisper passed through me, and dread pooled as I caught the unmistakable sound of laughter behind the veil of chaos. "You've awakened more than you know." The Emperor's voice slithered through the air, sending a wave of frost over my spine. The shadows convulsed, and I stared in horror as a scene unfolded. More faces hovered toward us, some I recognized and others I did not. A mishmash of past lives, hopes, and sorrows, entangled in a web of light and darkness, revealing dangers I had barely begun to understand. Who are they? I gasped, the realization dawning that they were connected to my every decision, that their suffering was intertwined with the choices I had made. Choices come at a cost, the chilling voice echoed, laughter mingling with my cries as everything began to buckle beneath the weight of new revelations. I was not just fighting for one life, but many, and once this truth unfurled, what hope was there in denying it? The light flickered uncertainly as the shadows inched closer, the battle for our lives now palpable in the shifting chaos. Can't we save them all? I shouted desperately, feeling both the urgency and the depth of sacrifices yet to come. But the past echoed in my mind, entwined in the shadows. I needed to decipher the ultimate truth, the one that could redefine not only our fate but the very essence of who we each were. And standing amidst the swirling chaos, with the echoes of hope and impending despair ringing loud, I finally understood. To free them, to free us all, I would need to confront the darkest corners of my heart. The price was steep, but it was one I was willing to pay. Remember me when the light comes back, the child cried, terrors turning to whispers of longing in her eyes, and as the last remnants of hope shimmered and dwindled, the shadows closed in, their tendrils grasping for my soul, and I knew a fight against the Emperor was only the prelude to the storm unleashed inside of me, as I teetered on the brink of uncovering a truth that would change everything. The sinister laughter of the Emperor echoed in my ears like a death knell, heavy with the weight of the truth I was yet to grasp. I turned back to the boy, who remained shackled in an unrelenting grasp of shadows, his eyes pleading for salvation that might be snatched from him at any moment. Stay near, I shouted, but the cry felt thin against the oppressive dark. The little girl squeezed my hand, her warmth grounding me. Yet even as that connection anchored me, fear gnawed at my mind like a wild beast. How could I confront the depth of the shadows without losing everything that mattered? I forced my attention back to the boy, who shivered beneath the weight of his chains, his spirit flickering like a dying candle. What is your name? I asked, trying to pierce through the chaos with a semblance of calm. Luca, he whispered, a fragile sound barely heard over the tempest surrounding us. I don't want to be alone anymore. My heart twisted painfully at his words, each syllable a reminder of my own losses, and the children I once lost to the shadows. A flicker of recognition passed between us. Too many had suffered this fate, bound by unrelenting darkness. I won't let you lose hope, Luca. Together, we'll find a way, I promised, still uncertain of the path ahead. As I faced the girl, I felt her warmth radiating once more, her faith in me forming a bridge over my crushing doubts. But just as I steeled myself to shatter Luca's bonds, shadows knocked against me like a wall of cold despair. Do you still dream of victory? A haunting voice crooned, the shadows dancing more wickedly at my feet. You have unleashed what lies hidden within. These chains bind more than just these innocent hearts. They are a reflection of your own despair. Then ill bear it, I shouted defiantly, clenching Luca's cold hand tightly in mine. I'll face the truth unflinchingly if it means saving you both. The darkness encircled us, mounting in ferocity. I felt the presence of lost memories swirl around, taunting me. I could almost hear the voices of my past mingling with whispers of doubt, and in their tones, I perceived the war I fought reflected back at me. Are you ready to pay the price? The Emperor taunted, his laughter echoing chillingly through the cavern. You could save one but the other. They may not survive. I felt the small grip of the little girl tremble in my hand, and from across the void, Luca's frightened gaze met mine, brimming with the raw vulnerability of childhood innocence. Please, he murmured, the weight of his hope resting on my shoulders. Suddenly, the brilliance of our combined light dimmed, stifled by the looming shadows that sought to drown us all. I felt a rising sense of hopelessness suffuse me, like a poison coursing through my veins. With every passing moment, the shadows danced closer, their whispers growing ever louder, a cacophony of warnings, regrets, and snares that threatened to ensnare me in their web of despair. Dividing your light won't save you. It will only dim your spark. No, I roared, fighting against the tide of darkness. recalling the flickers of hope I'd held onto through this harrowing journey. I will not surrender to you. We are stronger together, united in this fight. But disbelief crept back, feeding on old wounds and regrets. I saw the faces of those I had lost, heard the promises of the past echoing in the air, whispering doubts and fears. What if I made a wrong choice? What if my decision set loose more than I anticipated? Luca shrank back, sensing my faltering resolve. Don't listen to them. I believe in you. There was something innocent and sincere in his gaze, straining against the shadows coiling around us. Then, in a heartbeat, I understood what I had to do. Luca, hold on to my light, I shouted, pulling him close, anchoring him to the warmth radiating from the little girl beside me. With every ounce of strength left within me, I called forth the light that flickered beneath the weight of despair, channeling every joyous laugh, heartfelt embrace, and promise of love that had ever touched my soul. I could feel it shimmering, behind my closed eyes, a beacon igniting in the depths of my heart. And as the tendrils of shadow lunged forward, ready to wrap around our throats, I thrust my hand into the light, unleashing its power that burst forth in an explosion of brilliance. We are more than this darkness. We are hope. But just as a shimmering brightness billowed, I felt the tug of loss pulling at my heart, the Emperor's laughter ringing in my ears loud, triumphant, like the final nails in a coffin. Fools! Your bond cannot withstand the weight of truth. Each of you cannot escape the cost of this fight. The light surged, enveloping us as shadows recoiled temporarily, raw and writhing in pain. But in that very moment of clarity, I felt a profound chill. Realization snaking its way through meth light I bore was also a reflection of the shadows I carried. Together we can break free, I shouted, feeling Luca and the little girl beside me envelope in my growing determination. I sought the warmth emanating from their spirits, channeling that into a shield against the dark citadel encompassing us. Yet the laughter remained a haunting melody, weaving itself through the light, feeding off it. The realization struck me like a brutal blow. The Emperor's curse would remain as long as he had the power to manipulate the shadows of our past. And just as I believed the tide would turn with our unified strength, I felt the tremor ripple through the air, an intense jolt that shook the very foundation of our battle. The shadows morphed into one entity, and I realized, with mounting horror, that they were not alone. What lies hidden will rise once again. The Emperor's voice echoed, delivering a chilling premonition. The air around us thickened, and my heart sank as I noticed familiar figures emerging from the dark shadows of those I had lost, rising again, transformed and twisted by the scars of betrayal. I staggered, horrified to see the faces of my loved ones, their eyes glimmering with sorrow and anger. You cannot run from your past, they raged, and their shadows moved within the depths of the darkness, seeking me out as I stood frozen in place. Your choices bind you to us, forever, they howled, and I felt my heart clench painfully. Please, I cried, begging for forgiveness, desperate for absolution. I didn't mean for it to end this way, but instead of solace, I felt the convergence of shadows drawing closer, surrounding us like a noose tightening around our fates. Deep-rooted fear clawed at my mind, the painful realization that I had awakened not only the memories I sought to forget, but the consequences of my every action. Face your choices, the Emperor's voice boomed once more, and for the first time, I understood that the fight was not merely against the shadows but within myself. In that moment, a decision crystallized amidst the chaos, fueled by the desperation of our intertwined fates. I would confront my past, dismantling the chains binding them from within. I would shine the light into every corner of darkness, for only in facing those demons could we hope to break free. And so, as shadows encroached, I stood resolute, arms outstretched to embrace the memories I had long buried. I would not cower. I would embrace the truth, however painful, and face the cost that would define our salvation. Together we will break this cycle. I shouted into the tempest, my voice gravelly yet fierce. No matter what darkness finds us, we are powerful. We belong to one another. Though the laughter of the Emperor echoed around us, the warmth of the children beside me surged through me, igniting courage I hadn't known I possessed. We would forge a new path, a chance to break those chains once and for all. But before I could breathe in the resolve that swelled within me, a devastating realization struck. The figures stepping forth from the shadows bore an unmistakable resemblance to me. Dread washed over me like ice water. "Isn't it too late for redemption?" They spoke in unison, their voices intertwining a sickening harmony that sought to draw me into the very abyss I fought against. And as recognition dawned upon my heart the truth of what I had sacrificed, the questioning glances of the little girl and Luca darkness surged toward me once more, hungry and relentless. There was no returning from the bitter edge of this fate I had awakened, and the battle that lay ahead was one that would test everything I held dear. "Hold on," I shouted to Luca and the girl, clinging desperately to the flickering hope that bound us all together, even as the shadows loomed closer, threatening to engulf the last remnants of our united strength. The fight was far from over, and only together could we hope to untangle the lies that had bound us for so long. Yet I could feel the chilling truth creeping into my heart, a whisper that hinted at something more, the realization that I would have to face the darkest parts of myself to find salvation. "Remember me," echoed the chilling reminder, a shadow that would haunt me into the depths of despair. And just when I believed I would lose everything, another flicker of light emerged, driving me to confront the war unfolding not only outside but deep within. Because in the trenches of my spirit, I would fight against the very perception that had shaped my life if I had strength enough to confront it. We were on the edge of an awakening, and as darkness threatened to swallow us whole, I felt the undeniable truth sink in. If I was to rewrite the end of my story, I would have to confront the Emperor's lies no matter the cost. The air danced with tension, thickening as the echoes of the Emperor's voice faded into the shadows swirling around us. My heart raced, entwined with fear and determination as the faces of my past loomed larger than life, demanding my attention, my contrition. Each one bore a silent accusation, a question that clawed at my mind like a relentless tide. "Remember me." The words clung to the back of my throat, a cruel reminder of those I had loved and lost. I looked into the eyes of Luca and the little girl, sensing their fragile hope intertwined with the very essence of despair that permeated the air. "We need to face this together," I breathed, trying to suppress the tidal wave of dread threatening to engulf me. The shadows writhed, twisting in anticipation of our next move. "You cannot escape the truth," they hissed, morphing into something grotesque before my eyes. I raised my arms protectively around Luca and the girl, their warmth a beacon against the clamoring darkness. Yet the realization struck me: the more I tried to shield them, the more I risked losing myself. "What if you lost us too?" Luca whispered, his fear palpable. "What if you choose wrong again?" My heart fractured at his question. "I won't let that happen. I promise you both we will find our way." The conviction in my voice felt like a fragile thread, a flicker of candlelight against the encroaching night. And then, with a sudden surge, the figures of my past surged forward, their eyes colors I recognized, familiar shades of blue and green reflecting both love and pain. They reached out toward me, hands trembling, not in anger but in a desperate plea for connection. I staggered backward, the sting of regret almost overwhelming. "I didn't mean for any of this," I cried, but my words hung heavy in the air, dismissed by the shadows shifting with relentless vigor. "Your choices have led you here," one voice echoed, deep and resonant, carrying the weight of countless memories. "The shadows were born from your fears, and every burden you refused to bear, we now carry alongside you." "No," I shouted, shaking my head in defiance. "You are not my burden. You are my family." In that moment of fervent declaration, the shadows shivered, caught between my fierce denial and the voices clamoring for acknowledgement. The air grew electric, the balance precariously tilted. Could I reclaim their love, or would my refusal to confront the truth seal our fates in darkness? "Face us," another figure beckoned, their voice a soothing melody amid the chaos. "You mustn't continue running from the shadows within." The warmth of the little girl seeped into my being, grounding me as the cacophony faded slightly. "They only want to help," she said gently, her eyes wide with understanding beyond her years. A single tear rolled down her cheek, a stunning reflection of grace amidst turmoil. What if they can be our strength? I looked from her to Luca, absorbing their unwavering trust. In those young faces, I found a flicker of courage igniting within me, urging me forward. You are right, I whispered, the realization crystallizing like clear glass. I've spent too long hiding from my past, trying to bear the weight alone. The shadows pulsed, drawing nearer, forming a swirling vortex of emotions that threatened to unravel me. But with Luca and the girl by my side, I felt a surreal collective heartbeat pulsating through our entwined fingers. If we face this together, if we acknowledge our fears, perhaps the chains binding you will break. The darkness hesitated, seemingly thrown off balance by the sincerity of my words. I reached out toward the shadows, willing to accept my past, to embrace the painful memories alongside the love I had lost. I have hurt you, yes, but I will no longer let this pain dictate my future. I will honor you by facing what I feared. Will you forgive yourself? One of the shadows asked, their voice tinged with both hope and sorrow. Time slowed, a stillness enveloping us as I contemplated the weight of those words. I responded, my voice stronger now. In repentance, I will find the light to guide us. We'll gather every shard of brokenness and breathe new life into it. As I spoke, I felt the children's courage feeding into me like a lifeline, the warmth of their belief infusing the darkness around us. Together we can anchor ourselves, I affirmed, stepping closer to the shadows of my past. Together, we will find peace. The figures paused, caught in the allure of vulnerability, their spectral forms softening with every phrase. But what if you fail again? They murmured, shadows flickering like candles in a tempest. What if this time it costs you everything? Terror prickled at the edges of my resolve, but beneath it lay something more powerful, an unyielding wish to rewrite our collective fate. I'm willing to face that risk, I declared, heart hammering against my ribs. For your sake, for Luca and the little girl, I will embrace whatever comes. And in that decisive moment, something extraordinary shifted. The shadows, once grotesque and haunting, began to take on the faintest glimmer of light, a shimmer reflecting understanding, a promise of grace waiting to be grasped. The shadows around me stirred, intertwining with the tendrils of my spirit, coalescing into a raw, radiant energy that surged through my veins. It held the echoes of every laugh, every joy, every loss, each bearing witness to the change unfolding. But just as the darkness began to loosen its grip, the Emperor's laughter erupted, echoing with ominous clarity, filling the cavern with dread. You think you can simply override the consequences of your past? He sneered, his voice mocking. You will never escape what you are. Even now they are listening. Their whispers will lacerate your resolve. And at that moment, I felt a piercing realization that the shadows had not entirely surrendered. They were still born from fear and grief, still holding on to the whispers of the past. Remember me, came the chorus, more powerful now, reverberating with a truth I had long evaded. The trembling of my heart escalated, guiding me to a crossroads, a choice I could no longer deny. The air thickened around us, shadows clawing at my resolve, longing to reclaim their hold. Together we can shift the balance, I urged, wrapping my arms around Luca and the girl. Let's show them the resilience of love, the tenacity of hope. Yet, in an instant of abysmal clarity, a shadowy apparition surged forth, crashing through the barrier that protected us. The familiar face transitioned from memory to corporeal form, locking eyes with Maya, figure I never thought I'd see again. A fragment of my past I had left to the winds of time. Why did you abandon me? They demanded, the hurt woven into every syllable. Did you think you could outrun the cost of your actions? And as I stood at the precipice of despair, the echo of the past roaring to life, I felt the light begin to flicker once more, teetering on the edge of hope and despair. I was faced with an unexpected confrontation, the impending necessity to engage with the very essence of my failures, each error manifesting into a confrontation I could no longer avoid. Luca, hold on, I yelled, bracing myself against the resurgence of fear feeling the shadows tightening their grip anew. In this pivotal moment, I realized the battle was far from over, each breath a reminder that the only way to save us was to illuminate the darkest corners of my heart. This truth might just hold the key to our transformation. With the shadows swirling around me, and the choices I had made laid bare before me, I was inescapably drawn into the storm. Standing between the flickering light and the encroaching darkness, I took a breath, a choice roiling in my gut, a single thought surfacing amidst the chaos. With love, we can reclaim the light, and then, as the shadows encircled, I prepared to face an unimaginable truth that would unfurl the threads of our fates, for better or worse. The shadows throbbed with a life of their own, wrapping around me like a dark shroud as I locked eyes with the apparition from my past. The face that had haunted my dreams and racked my heart with guilt now stared back at me, vivid and accusing. "You left me," they said, each word laced with both pain and betrayal. "You ran when it mattered most." The world shrank around me, the laughter of the Emperor looming ominously in the background. I swallowed hard, emotions swirling violently within me. "I thought I was protecting you," I said, my voice cracking as the weight of the truth pressed down like a vice. "I thought I was saving you from the darkness." "From what? Your own cowardice?" The specter's voice was sharp, cutting through the murmur of shadows and piercing my heart. Each syllable echoed the hardest truths I had tried to bury. "You left me to face the consequences of your actions alone." Luca and the little girl stood close, their hands tightening around mine, grounding me despite the tempest around us. I could feel their courage flowing into me, a tether that refused to let me drown in despair. Even amidst my anguish, I turned to them, drawing strength from their presence. "We can do this together," I assured them, though my heart quaked at the unfolding reality. "Together," whispered the little girl, her small voice a bright thread woven into the darkness. Her faith shimmered like a flickering candle against a storm, and in her eyes, I saw the glimmer of something more powerful than fear, an unwavering belief that could illuminate the most shadowy paths. But the apparition remained, its presence a stark reminder of my failures. "You cannot just ignore me," they cried, a tempest of emotions surfacing. "You think you can rewrite your story without facing the truth?" "I know I cannot," I replied, my voice gathering strength. "But I will not do it in isolation. You are part of me, part of my journey. I am sorry for running away, for leaving everyone behind." The shadows ripple around us, responding to my words by momentarily refracting a sense of understanding. An unexpected connection sparked between us, the pain of the past an acknowledgement rather than a punishment. "Return with me." Then, the apparition implored, their figure softening, revealing glimpses of the love we had shared. "Let me guide you back to the light, but you must confront all you've been avoiding." With every heartbeat, my resolve sharpened, echoing through the corridors of regret like a clarion call. Around us, the swirling shadows began to settle, as the figures of those I had lost stood shoulder to shoulder, each face a precious reminder of love forged through fire. "Together we will weave these threads of fear and forgiveness," I declared, casting a glance at Luca and the girl, incandescent hope shimmering in my chest. "We owe it to ourselves, to this family that refuses to be broken." And just as I felt the stirrings of jubilant defiance, the Emperor's sinister laughter broke through once more, reverberating with malevolence. "How naive you are! Do you not understand the binding of these shadows? Their whispers will drown you, consume everything you cherish." "No," I shouted, my voice echoing like a battle cry. "I will not be swallowed by despair. We will pave a path through the darkness, illuminating what lies ahead. I will honor all of you, not just the memories, but the lives still intertwined with mine." The apparition shifted, uncertainty clouding their features. "And if the truth shatters this fragile hope? If confronting it means you lose everything for a second time?" The shadows thickened, shimmering like oil on water, and I stepped forward, every ounce of my being rebelling against their insinuations. "Then I will face that with as much love as I can muster. I will face it for you, for Luca, for the little girl who believes in a future forged from the ashes of our past." At I end that moment of clarity, I saw within Luca's eyes the reflection of resilience, a mirrored spirit daring to believe that redemption was possible. The little girl squeezed my hand tighter, her innocence a powerful reminder of the strength found amidst vulnerability. "I believe in you," she whispered, each word a soft flame igniting in the depths of the encroaching darkness. "We can find a way together." But then, the glowing apparitions of my past shifted, swirling like smoke dissipating into the void. "We will always be with you," they murmured, merging once more into the shadows. But the fear will not be so easily faced. As their voices intermingled with the dark laughter of the Emperor, a breathtaking realization hit me. The shadows, though daunting, could transform into a sanctuary if I was brave enough to intertwine my truths with theirs. "Together," I murmured to my companions, "we will forge a path no matter how many times we are tested." And then, just when the shadows began to relent, a shattering realization cut through the moment, the flickering light, illuminating not only the shadows of my failures but also revealing the unmarked paths I had yet to explore. The potential for new beginnings hung heavy in the air. With a single sharp breath, the darkness erupted around us. I felt the pull of the shadows intensify, pulling us into the storm, a vortex of emotions threatening to consume us. As we were ripped from the cradle of hope, a chilling scream rang out, an echo of betrayal, confusion, and fear, merging into one. "Remember me." The cry was relentless, reverberating through my core, as the weight of the shadows surged, pulling us deeper into the abyss. And just like that, I was plunged into a darkness thicker than any I had ever faced. The echoes of my past, not just a whisper but a howl that activated every nerve in my body. I could feel the resolve of Luca and the little girl by my side, a tether chaining our fates. But the fear threatened to drown us. With resounding clarity, we were on the precipice of something terrifying, a confrontation that would test every fragment of hope we had nurtured, and the course of our fates would unfold in the midst of chaos. The darkness roared as if alive, engulfing us in a tempest of shadows that twisted and writhed like venomous serpents. My heart raced, the weight of panic pressing down on my chest. Echoes of betrayal and desperation vibrated through the air, reminding me that the struggle was far from over. It felt as though the shadows were clawing at my very essence, ready to tear apart what little resolve remained. I clutched the hands of Luca and the little girl, feeling their warmth seep into my own trembling fingers. Together, we formed an unbreakable link amid the chaos. They were my anchors, my beacons of light in a storm that threatened to drown us. "We are not alone," I shouted into the swirling abyss, forcing the words past the tremor of fear in my throat. "Together, we stand united against the darkness." But just as my voice echoed with determination, the shadows surged forward, morphing into figures that twisted and contorted into the faces of those I had lost, their eyes filled with sorrow. "You abandoned us," they whispered, their tone heavy with accusation. "You ran from the truth." Each word struck like daggers, burrowing into my heart. "I fought," I cried out, tears spilling down my cheeks. "I fought to protect you, to protect us all." My voice faltered, the weight of anguish crashing down around me. But I realize now that I cannot protect anyone by fleeing from the truth. The shadows pulsed and coiled around me, mocking my attempts at defiance. "Face us," they pleaded, their forms shifting but never fully revealing themselves. "You are bound to us by your choices, by the burdens you refuse to carry." A wave of memories flooded through meth laughter, the warmth, the love intertwined with the crushing weight of regret. I glanced at Luca and the girl again, their eyes wide with trust and an unyielding belief in me even as the shadows clawed at our spirits. "Please remember," the little girl whispered, her voice trembling with conviction. "We are stronger together." In that moment, something flickered within me, a recognition of the power that lay in truth. "You're right," I spoke, my voice gaining strength. "I must face what I've avoided all along." It was terrifying to acknowledge the darkness I carried within, but I knew now that it could not be defeated by running from it. The shadows shuddered, their forms wavering as I pressed forward, fueled by the warmth radiating from my companions. "You are not just my ghosts, you are part of the fabric of my being. I honor you by remembering, by confronting the choices that led us here." I let out a breath, feeling a slight easing of the tension as I began to untangle the fears, hurts, and regrets I had buried within. With resolve igniting like a flame, I stepped forward into the pulsating shadows. I choose to remember, I declared, locking eyes with the specters. I choose to embrace my past. I will not shy away any longer. I will bear this burden. Each step I took felt like a weight lifting, a purging of the past that had constrained me for so long. The darkness receded slightly, revealing flashes of light that illuminated my path. At the same time, a visceral howl erupted from the shadows around me, a mixture of anger and despair. But I pressed on, my voice steady and resolute. The truth shall not bind me, but free me. I refuse to live in grief. I refuse to let shadows dictate the legacy of love that I bear. Suddenly, the ground beneath us shook violently, the weight of the Emperor's looming presence bearing down like a heavy mantle. You think you can escape me? His voice boomed, dripping with scorn. This eternal struggle will be your undoing. Together, I shouted, holding tightly to the hands of my companions. We are not merely shadows or memories. We are defined by our love, our choices. Together we will reclaim the light. As my voice echoed through the chambers of despair, a brilliant light erupted from within, illuminating the darkness. For the first time, I felt a wave of collective strength surge through me. The shadowy figures flickered, transforming as they felt the warmth of our unity. We reclaim the light, Luca cried, his resolve unwavering. We face the truth. The little girl echoed his sentiment, her innocent belief magnifying the energy around us. Together, and as we united our voices once more, the incandescent light burst forth, driving back the shadows with relentless force. I felt the warmth blanket us, a protective embrace against the onslaught of darkness. But just then, the Emperor's laugh reverberated through the air, holding a chilling promise. You think you will triumph? What if the light you seek costs you more than you are prepared to pay? The shadows writhed, and an unbearable tension filled the air. As images flickered before memories of loved ones lost, moments I had chosen to forget, I faltered as doubt crept in, dragging me back into the depths of fear. What will become of us? I whispered, gripping the hands of Luca and the girl tighter, their reassuring warmth grounding me. You must face it, the apparitions called out, now echoing with a peculiar harmony. You must accept the truth of the cost. Only then will you find the real strength to move forward. I end that heart-stopping moment. As the darkness clouded my vision, clarity struck. What if the truth is not the final blow but the catalyst for us to rise anew? An inexplicable courage sparked within me. I choose love. I choose hope. I choose unity. The shadows recoiled as I declared my truth, the Emperor's laughter momentarily silenced by my fierce determination. But there will be a sacrifice, he hissed, his voice keen with malice. You will pay a price, one you may not expect. That I am prepared. I shouted back, refusing to back down again. The strength of my heart is greater than your lies. Suddenly, the shadows around us began to dissipate, revealing a portal of shimmering light. It was an exit, a chance, but it seemed as if something drew me back, ties to my past that wanted to pull me away, into the darkness once more. The choice collided within me, a sacrifice that loomed larger than the last. I cast my gaze toward the children beside me, feeling the warmth of their presence surge through my heart. We made it this far together. No matter what lies ahead, I will always choose you. With a surge of determination, I stepped toward the radiant light, pushing through the darkness that threatened to claim me. Together, I yelled as I propelled myself forward. Time slowed as I reached the light, and the shadows coiled around me, clawing for my essence, their claws tearing at every thought I had of hope. Just as I felt I might be consumed, the warmth of love radiated from my heart, illuminating the path forward. The moment of choice collided with the reality that awaited me. Would it be love that set me free, or would the darkness continue to demand its toll? Then, with my heart resonating with the voices of those I loved, hope surged like a wildfire, burning away the shadows. I choose love, I cried as I stepped through the portal, emerging into the light in a breathtaking rush. I felt the bonds of my past shift, realigning as memories flooded forth, not as burdens but as layers of light that built the foundation of my spirit. I blinked against the brilliance, my heart soaring with the truth of everything I had faced and the power of every moment of love I had cultivated. And in that luminous realm, surrounded by the glow of hope and the whispers of those I had once mourned, I knew what the price had truly been: acceptance and the unwavering belief that love could triumph over even the darkest shadows. The last chains of doubt fell away, and as I stood tall, I felt the weight of my journey dissolve into understanding. Together, I whispered, with Luca and the little girl by my side, ready to move forward into the future we would build together, healing from the dark but never defined by it. And as the dawn of a new day broke, I embraced my truth: the past would always be a part of me, but I was not alone. Everywhere before me lay a pathway lush with potential, a realm where love could shine brighter than darkness, glimmering with hope as we stepped boldly into our future. The finality of my journey washed over me like a warm embrace, and I closed my eyes, letting the sunlight envelop me. No more fear, no more shadows, just love, endless and unwavering. Together, I breathed, my heart purring a vow freshly ignited in an unforgiving world, illuminating the unbreakable bond that lay ahead as we took our first steps hand in hand into the sunrise. I will never forget. I pledged to every luminous specter of my past, every person I had loved and lost, promising them that history would always intertwine with hope. And as we walked toward the dazzling horizon, a gentle breeze carried my voice into the ether, resonating with the echoes of truth: I am finally free.